Hello.
What? Hey, who dat? Can you hear me? You're on mute. There you go.
Good.
Yeah, now you're good.
Hey, Kristen.
Hello.
Hi. Laura invited me. I didn't know if I'd be joining.
Great. Yeah. Anybody and everybody. If we get a large amount.
Can I put this on my Instagram, or is it just for the Brooklyn Clay people?
It can be whatever you want. It can be totally public. I think I haven't checked, but the idea was that, so I invited your students, and then the idea was that Laura's going to post them right before and send out an email so that people are sort of aware of, like, we'll be posting on our story when these are going to start. Feel free to join, but we'll email people's students for sure.
Great. And yeah, because I got a story notification, but I didn't know if I could share it or.
Yeah, definitely.
I think so. It's on the Brooklyn Clay Instagram. So.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like, sometimes you can do it to just so many people or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the case, but just because I hadn't clarified.
Yeah, and it's up to you. Like, if we do end up doing like a demo one later, I think we'll see how long we're all locked up in our homes, but we can accommodate, I think, like 100 people.
No way.
I think once we get past 2, I will mute people and then moderate, because it starts to just like cut the flow of things. But we could also so I think it's totally up to you, but if you wanted to do one where it's just your students, we could try and do that if there's like a group of them that you think would really enjoy that. Or we could do like pre-recorded ones, like on your phone or computer, where you're just demoing solo, and then we could upload that to the YouTube. Just like, I think people are already like hungry just to have things to watch and learn from. So whatever format you like, we can run with.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm still working on getting the internet out to my studio.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I have to find an Ethernet cord long enough. That my studio is like an old brick building, and I don't even really get cell phone service in there. So it's not, if I was to use the Zoom on my phone, it would be like very bad resolution. So
yeah.
But I think we'll be able to do it. And I put together a list of the names. I mean, I don't know if I'll get through all of these people.
Yeah.
Pots that I'm going to talk about. I pulled a lot out. I'm
very excited. This is like a very real collection.
Yes. Yeah. This is not even what we're going to talk about.
All right.
Truly. I could just talk about that.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that too. But I got here. I'll just give you a quick.
Yeah, please, if you don't mind.
I don't know if you can see this or not. I put it on top of a couple of boxes of clay so that I can stand.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very professional setup.
I get really bored. Hey, how's it going? I'm gonna send this email to you right now, Anders, which is just the list of all of the people. And if we don't, it's also plus, if when relevant, their Instagram handles. But Val Cushing's not on Instagram, so.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I haven't seen him post in a while.
Yeah.
Hey, Haakon, if you send that to me too, I'll put it in the the description of the video.
Let me send it to you right now.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're probably going to get a sneak appearance from my cats.
Same. Pepper might come in and out of here.
Goose will be sitting on my lap.
Okay. I just sent it to you as well, Laura.
Thank you.
How you guys holding up?
Pretty good so far.
Yeah. I wore cheery clothing.
So is your studio at home?
It is, yeah. I have like a patio space. that I refer to as a yard, but my wife, who grew up not in Manhattan, tells me that it's not. So it's a patio, apparently. And it's about 20 feet, or maybe like 14 feet, pretty big. And then I have a little brick building that is older than my building, that has no running water or heat. But I ran a 220 line out there, and I got a kiln and pottery wheel. Excellent. And studio furniture that I made.
Well done.
Yeah, very dark, no windows really. Serious water damage.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I believe it was at one time a carriage house.
Oh, really?
There's Emily, one of my students, and actually, like, if you go up on the roof, there are earthenware, salt glazed corner tiles, which I believe puts that building in around the 1890s, because that was a big industry in New York at the time. And this was a very poor neighborhood. Hey! So I was just telling this story. Maybe I'll just tell this while we wait for people to join, of my studio that is part of my, it's part of my apartment. That I don't own it, I just rent it. But I live on a ground floor shotgun apartment, so the first floor. And then I have a little patio space. And then behind the patio, can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah, it actually sounds great. Yeah.
Great. I have a loud voice. Behind the patio, I have a separate little building that's like 14 by 14. It's a little brick building that I believe was a carriage house and is definitely older than the building that I live in. And my belief is that it's from around the 1890s, no later than 1900, because this was a very poor neighborhood historically. And the roof has earthenware, salt glazed tiles on it, which would have been very cheap before like 1910 and was a major industry in New York. And that's when they would have had to put them in, because they would have not spent any money on whatever it is. Anyway, that's my theory. However, interesting story, my block is named Pete Pascal Way after a civil servant named Pete Pascal, who in his New York Times obituary in 1994, he sent like 200,000 kids to college. He's one of the people who started the Fresh Air Fund, and he was a protege of Eleanor LaGuardia, the former mayor. And he actually lived next door to me. And one time I was having a open studio back when I used to do that. And I sent it to this artist who I only know, but we've never met. Her name is Lolo something or other. She's like a 95-year-old, like radical feminist performance artist. And she does these performances where she stages like naked performances of Antigone in front of the mayor's house and stuff like that to protest the fact that there are no sculptures of women with names in New York City. And I included her because I was hoping she could make it. She couldn't, but she was like, you know what? I grew up next door. My dad was Pete Pascal, and I knew the family that lived in your building. They were an Italian family, and they made leather gloves in your studio.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's bananas.
So whatever,
70
years later, another Italian-American craftsman cranking away in there.
I love New York. What neighborhood are you in?
I live in East Harlem.
Cool.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I want to look up this artist.
Yeah, let me see if I can just really quickly pull it up.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I could even do a screen share.
Yeah, is everybody like familiar with how Zoom works? So now that we have like several people, and we've got 7 people, and hopefully more will join. Haakon, it's up to you how you want it to flow. So one thing to be mindful of is like when you start talking, that is the audio, it'll switch to that audio and it'll focus on that person. So it can start to get tricky, but it's up to you, Haakon. Like we could do, one way is where like I could moderate and mute, and then if people have questions, they can just chat me, and then I'll read those questions out loud. Or if we're all just like mindful of the fact that if you speak, it will like focus on you, we can just go that way. I think it's so nice that some of like your students are here, so I'd like to make it as normal of a conversation as possible, but so that's up to you, Haakon.
Up to me. I would say let's keep it open for now.
Cool.
And this way people can ask questions. If it gets to be, if there gets to be more than 20 people or so, and it's a lot of chorus or whatever, then let's switch over to that. And I will just, you know, maybe I'll say something, but I'll also maybe leave that to your discretion. If it just is bouncing around a lot.
Yeah.
You know, because I might just, when I'm talking, sometimes I like totally space out and I'm in like another place.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it is pretty sensitive. So like, even if you like set something down hard, it'll like talk to you, but all right, let's roll with it for now. Thank you everybody for being here. This is a great turnout. We're going to start doing more and more of these sessions. And yeah, it's going to be a great way to like continue learning and continue talking about ceramics and getting exposed to different things. One format that we're probably going to use a lot is with different instructors too, is viewing people's studios or at-home collections. So that's what we'll be doing with Haakon. And I think it's a great way to learn about individual objects, and it's also can be really informative and like revealing to see the things that people choose to live with and use every day. So I'm really excited to see what Haakon keeps at his immediate fingertips. So.
All right, love it. I'm so pumped. So I'm resisting my urge to just have quiet jazz music in the background and make this like a good old-fashioned BBC documentary. So I thought a lot of the stuff that I'm going to show you guys will be contemporary potters, and I've already sent out an email with a list of the people who are on Instagram that you can follow and check along with. But I'm going to start with some stuff that you probably would not see on the internet. It's included in there, but I'm going to start with a genre of pottery that I'm very interested in. I had to go to Thailand to pick this up. This is a genre of ceramics called, it's from Sukhothai, okay? And the genre is called Sangkhalok, all right? And the pottery that made this is a pottery studio called Suthep Pottery, and they are 100th generation family potters. I'm going to repeat that, 100 generations. If you do the math on that, that means that they were making pots like before Buddha was walking around on the planet. So pretty incredible. And what I love is just the really energetic painting quality that they have here. This is a family pottery studio. I went there because I went to Thailand 2 years ago for my 30th birthday. Well, a couple of friends and I, when we were in our early 20s, said, let's go to Thailand for our 30th birthday. And then Donald Trump got elected and we booked our tickets for 2 years in advance. Basically, I had seen in books Sangkhalok, this style. It's from the 14th century. And, you know, there's not a lot of it online that you can find, actually. So, and I think it's changed a little bit. But basically, we went to Thailand, and everywhere I go, I try and find as much ceramic components to my vacations as I can do. And the first stop we made in Thailand after Bangkok was a city called Lampong, which is an industrial ceramics city. And unfortunately, sort of protection for their ceramic industry disappeared in the 1980s. And so it was very much like an industrial city in decline. and no offense to the people of Lampong, and also no offense to the people who I'm going to refer to here, but it was very much like visiting Rochester, New York. There wasn't a whole lot to see, and there were no museums really. And while I was there, I was attacked by a horse, and I got headbutted by a horse. That's also a long story. Then I pulled my back out after that happened. So I arrived to Sukhothai, which is in southern Thailand, with a mild concussion after an 8-hour train ride and a really bad back. And I will say, if you can get your hands on this stuff, I got this stuff, hold on. This is like the Thai version of Tiger Balm, and man, is it incredible, okay? So we were in Sukhothai, and to give you an idea of what that's about, it is the birthplace of the Siam Empire. So Sukhothai means the beginning of Thailand. And basically, when you go there, there was an incredible amount of pottery production because Thailand at that point became the sort of ceramic manufacturer for most of Asia, because China at that period in the 14th century went in a period of inwardness and began to close off trade. So they weren't letting people in or out. And Thailand ended up picking up a lot of that. So basically you can go walk around and you see these kilns. They haven't really been fully excavated, but there's shards that look just like this all over the ground. And, you know, families are just, you know, having a barbecue next to this like Anagama kiln that's excavated. It's pretty cool. So you can see it's an earthenware type of clay, probably fired pretty hot, hotter than you know what we would do, but it's still it's stronger than low fire 04, but pretty durable. Great for fish. It's got a wonderful form. Okay, and then here's another piece of theirs that I'll show you. Any questions on this?
I'm curious, just like about the pottery, like how many potters are working on that site when you were there?
Yes. So the pottery is run by a matriarchal figure. She must have been in her 80s. I don't remember her name. And she spoke English, but kind of pretended not to as a gimmick, I think. So basically I went there and I was in a frenzy and just started pulling pots out. And then, as often is the case, eventually I revealed that I was a potter. And I find that when you're in the rest of the world and you reveal yourself to be a potter to other potters, that's when like the tea comes out. And so she then sat me down, and the next thing I knew, we were eating jackfruit and painting pottery. She brought out some brushes, and then I took the pot that they painted, and they kept the pot that I painted. I still never fired the one that I painted there, or that they painted rather. But she ran the studio. It was her husband's family business. So again, they were, for people who are just tuning in, 100th generation. And as far as I could tell, none of the people who were working there were direct family, but there were an incredible amount of pots, and they had sort of several segments of business. So one segment was the pottery, functional pottery, and they made styles like this, which is the Sangkhalok black and white painting style. They also made like an inlay type style that is like this, multicolored, and you can't really tell from here, but this has a sort of topography to it. If I had been less nervous, I would have asked them how they made this. I have no idea how they did this one. And they also made stuff like this, which is carved celadon ware, okay? But that's the amount of pottery that they made. They only had about three potters throwing, and equal up like about 1 or 2 people painting the pots. So the division of labor is different there. One person throws, one person paints. But they also had a very large scale architectural ceramic business going. And this is all attached to her home, by the way, and the studio was in the back of it. But they were making
and I mean, honestly, like I've seen more tow trucks and traffic cops.
Somebody's microphone is on. I think it's you, Cammie. If you wouldn't mind just muting your microphone.
Yep.
Thank you. Hi. Also, good to see you.
Yeah, so I think everybody can like maybe it's best, since now we have a lot of people joining, which is fantastic. Maybe if you mute yourself until you have a question, just so it doesn't pick up anything. I think that should work well. And if something isn't like making sense, just message me. But let's try doing that, because I think it looks like I can unmute people, but let's just like monitor ourselves. So if you have a question, feel free to like unmute and then just go for it.
So yes, thank you for that. But they were not just making pots, they were also making religious sculptures. So that area has, it's southern Thailand. And because it is the beginning, the birthplace of what became the Thai Empire, it was also the genesis of where Buddhism traveled through Thailand. So whenever you have places that are the beginning of religious epochs, usually have a kind of intermingling of religions. So it was quite common to see people also doing Hindu practices in their homes. So they were also making a lot of Ganesh sculptures. And the family actually invited me back into their prayer garden, and they clearly were praying to both Buddhist and Hindu iconography. They also then, what was really fantastic is at a certain point, one of the people who worked there said, you know, you're so interested in the history of ceramics. We have a museum in the back, and the word museum is used very loosely. It just means a collection in Thailand. So that was confusing when I would show up to places. But they're like, we have a museum, and you know, we've got pots that are like 2,000 years old back there. You wanna check it out? So I did, and this genre had actually kind of gone, not extinct, but had sort of stopped being made in favor of ceramics that was more in line with Chinese ceramics, a lot of chicken bowls and stuff like that. And the person who ran Suthep, the husband of the woman who was running it at the time, he was also working as a farmer, and he just would uncover a lot of artifacts from this period while he was farming and digging up land. And so he collected all of these pots, and they just kept them to study the forms and patterns. And he's sort of part of the rebirth of this movement. And so that was a really incredible experience to me. So if you go there, they're not on Instagram, but it's in the email that I sent out. It's Suthep Pottery in Sukhothai. And hopefully when people get to return to traveling, you should all go there. It's also, there's incredible temples and stuff like that that are on a national park, and you can only view it via bicycle, which if you tune in for the beginning of my story, I was like basically on a vision quest because I was in so much pain from having been concussed by being attacked by a horse and pulling my back out, and just living off of this Thai version of Tiger Balm, which is called, I think, Golden Cup Balm. I got this on eBay recently because I ran out of it. Get this, if you have aches and stuff, this stuff is just out of control good. It's really, really good. Okay, so I'm gonna move on, and I'm gonna now go, this is another great story, to a piece of pottery by the late Val Cushing, okay? Now, I'm putting this out here. The truth is, Val passed away, but he, and I love this little detail here, okay? This little dauber on the handle. And then also notice these this pushback thing here, really beautiful. Val, you know, you're not gonna find a lot of great images of Val Cushing's work on the internet just because of the way things played out and timing. Also, the photography that he used was very dated. Like, it's got a very 70s look to it with black backdrop and harsh lighting. That was kind of out of museum culture at the time. So that's a thing. But Val Cushing, I always like to kind of just think that when I'm teaching, you know, that there's like a candle that Val lit, that I always want to just kind of let people know that it's still burning. Because when you go look at his work, and I really suggest everyone try and dive into it a little bit, you're not going to be that impressed by it, because today, if you see it, you're going to see like a jar with a donut ring on it. And you're going to be like, well, that's kind of stupid or whatever. And the reality is, when he did it, it was like Charlie Parker, free jazz, really radical stuff in the 1950s and 60s. And, you know, you have to view his work through that lens. Now, the other thing about Val is that whether you realize it or not, most pottery studios in the country have a deep debt and connection to him, because he published a book, well, actually self-published a book called The Val Cushing Handbook for, I think, the Ceramic Artist, to clay and glazes. And every pottery studio in the country, more or less, has a glaze that says VC in front of it, or Val Cushing, and it's because he put it all out there for free. Now, he didn't want it to be published because he didn't want anyone to have the rights to anything, so he self-produced it, and he only sold it out of a pharmacy in the town of Alfred, New York. I believe it's still the case that you can buy it there. I have seen that like someone put a free copy of it online, but then it got taken down. I sometimes show handouts from it. But I love this pot. It's kind of a small thing. And, you know, Val's work was really radical, but this is a real kind of nod to medieval pottery. However, it's got this wild post-war kind of art pottery glaze that, you know, I don't know how well the resolution is coming through. It's got a lot of depth. Look at the throwing rings coming through it here. Again, I love this detail. Also, the sensitivity to the lip here. You know, this looks just like a border, but man, does that feel good, okay? It feels really, really good. And look at this, boom, just, you know, if you've got a bigger finger, it's this. For me, it's kind of this thing. And like all good pots, there's a little bit of a story that goes behind it. I never personally met Val Cushing. I did go to Alfred University as an undergrad, and he was still alive. He died, I think, in 2015, perhaps. I don't remember exactly when he died. Maybe it was more recent than that. I don't know. It all blends together. But Val, I went to his studio for a studio sale, and I was totally broke. I was a junior in college, and I had $70 left for the last 2 weeks of college. And, you know, again, a lot of privilege here. I knew that my dad was going to drive me home, so I didn't need gas money. I just needed like enough to just survive to whatever May 8th when my dad came. And so I took $40. I bought a lot of lentils and pasta and rice and a pack of rolling tobacco, and because that's what was a thing for me then. And then I said, okay, I got $40 in case there's an emergency. And I was not going to go to Val Cushing's studio sale, but inevitably I did end up going just because one person after another was like, come on, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. I hop in the car with some grad students. We get over there. The sale's ending in about 15, 20 minutes. A lot of pots. My cat's about to knock over so many pots over here. Get out of here, Sal. A lot of pots are still there. And his wife rings a dinner bell and says, okay, sale ends in 15 minutes. And in a moment of sheer panic, every pot in the room disappeared except for this pot. Actually, except for a different pot and this pot. And I was sitting in front of this purple pot, and my friend Tracy Lee was sitting in front of this one, and we both picked them up. And I said, I think I need that one. And she said, I think I need the one that was in your hand. And I spent my last $40 on this cup. And at the time, my girlfriend, my now ex-girlfriend at the time, I think kind of broke up with me because she was so disgusted with my priorities. And I will say that, at least for the time being, I have a couple more than $40. And I love this cup. It's been just a treasure to me. So that's Val Cushing, okay? So now I'm going to kind of go into some more contemporary people, people that I call my friends. And
Haakon, I had to grab the Val Cushing that is, it's Gus's, and I've benefited from this one.
That is awesome. Yeah.
It's just like, they're such like tanks.
Oh,
it's
man. Yeah.
It's very durable. It's very functional. It's comfortable.
Also,
yeah.
for a mug that's like beefy and durable like that, not a lot of people make smaller cups like that.
No.
Usually people who make those pots, they make like these fist-sized mugs.
Yeah.
Great for espresso, or if you're a drinker, you know, a cocktail or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great cup.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good score. Let's see, who should we talk about now? Let's talk about my friend Sarah Heidemeyer. This is a really wonderful cup. You know, some of the depth of this glaze might be lost on you, but because of the resolution. But really, I want to point this out because as potters, one of the things that we have to pay a lot of attention to is the underside of things, okay? And I often say that if we generally paid attention a little bit more to the underside of things, in general, we would be doing a lot better. And pottery is really a lesson in that. And that's, I think, you know a potter by the way they pick up something and look at it. So I want to point something out before I show you the bottom of this. This is a 3D printed cup. And I have a kind of weird relationship to 3D ceramics right now because I feel like it's very much like computer art in the late 80s and 90s. It's all about showing you that it was 3D printed. And some of that's cool. Some of it's like totally whatever to me. But Sarah is someone, and she's not just a full-time potter. She's really a kind of a fine artist who straddles both worlds. Sarah is someone who uses this really brilliantly, and not reflected in this, but in her regular work, she does a lot of tile installations, and she does imagery of water, where she scans water and then 3D prints it. And the way she does the layering glaze, kind of similar to some of the stuff that you're doing, Anders, with the spray glaze and the directional spraying.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it is so incredible. So check her out, Sarah Heidemeyer on Instagram. And again, I think Laura is sending out the list of people. She's on there. And this is a cup that I got from her. And the other thing that she's very influenced by is architectural ceramics, and particularly Islamic architectural ceramics, and the ability for pattern to become surface and environment. And in her regular work, which is about water, there's a reference to this, obviously, in the way that water has this sort of wide encompassing feeling. But I love this detail here. This is the foot, okay? It's trying to show you the width of this. I mean, it's just so incredible. And look at that, you know, it's really smooth. She's a sensitive potter on top of being a great fine artist, sanded very lightly to a nice finish, okay? So that's Sarah Heidemeyer. And also just an interesting thing, we tend to approach things like, oh, here's the form that I made, but really the beginning of this pot is this pattern, okay? And the form comes out of this pattern. The other thing that you can't totally experience is the actual weight of this. It's very heavy. And if you've ever slip casted pottery, you would know that it's difficult to make things that are really thick and heavy just because of the way casting works. So I don't know how she did that. If you follow her on Instagram, you should ask her, okay? Then let's go over here to my good friend, David Swensen, who most people know as Swen. He's Swenwares on Instagram. And this is a pot that I picked up, I think, at the one and only in Sika that I ever went to, 2015. Swen is a really wild guy, really good friend of mine. He's like in a pretty rad metal band. Also, if you're into like death metal, like slow, hard death metal, check them out. I think their name is Livid. But Swen is like really, I think he's got sort of the best brushwork in North America, in my opinion. And this is done with wax resist and a very fine brush and two different, a red iron oxide and a cobalt wash that he paints over it, okay? So you can notice this decorative motif where he's got this frieze, this kind of thing, sort of almost a little similar to, very different, but kind of a little bit of what Gus does with these scenes on his architectural ceramics, right?
Yeah.
And again, lovely sensitivity to the foot. He's got this, my cat is really very interested in you guys. And notice how the pattern wraps around the bottom of this. And because I've been spending a lot of time on the first ones, I'm gonna just sort of move through things so I can get through things. We've already been on here for a while. And I can just keep going. So I'll keep going until we time out, okay? So again, David Swensen, he goes by Swen. He's my Norwegian sort of brother from another mother. And think about this, you know, this is a wonderful way to use wax resist, okay? And then what he did was he bisque fired it, the wax disappears, and then he put a clear glaze over the whole thing. And this is would be a sort of Unomi. Also, I don't know if you can tell, it's square but round, and so that's got a nice feeling in your hand. And also how to use the form to decide how your surface is going to come out. It's sort of different genre of painting on either side. Kind of fascinating.
That's a really nice piece. I think, is he in Minneapolis? Or
he is. He's been at the Northern Clay Center for a really long time. He was a Fogelberg fellow for a while, and then he teaches at a bunch of schools there. And yeah, check him out. He makes really radical stuff. You know, actually, hold up one second. This is this like.
Maybe we can add everyone's Instagrams to a post afterwards too.
Yes, I think it's already up there.
Yeah, I sent it out on the group chat,
and
then we're gonna put it in the YouTube video description. So if you're watching now, read in the description below.
Yes. So this is David Swensen, Swenwares on Instagram, and you know he's got a lot of motifs that reoccur. Just this chicken. He also is really into crabs. He makes these beautiful paintings of crabs, and what's so cool about Swen is he's got really the deepest appreciation for traditional ceramics, but his forms are super radical, and he comes up with these really wild construction techniques with bisque molds and stuff. He's kind of someone you just can't pin down. Check him out. And again, you know, the way this glaze kind of falls casually on here is really interesting. I use this for brushes, and I don't know why we keep brushes in this. This doesn't even live in my studio. These are just the apartment brushes, and I got this kitchen spoon in here. So that's David Swensen. Let's move on to Brenda Quinn, Tri-State Hero. If you're not familiar with her work, she makes like some of the best pots. I think it's Quinn Pottery. Did I put it in the thing there? I'm not sure. If it's not, it's Quinn Pottery. Her name is Brenda Quinn. And this is one of those mugs that my wife Sophie and I kind of fight for. But I'm pretty generous, so even though I make coffee most mornings, I give it to her in this. But what's the takeaway? So many different sophisticated moves going on here. First of all, the handle is just delicious in your hand. Feels wonderful. Brenda's got kids, and something we talk about is how do you have that narrow-footed base to give it some lift, but it's actually quite wide and not that likely to tip over. Okay, thank you so much. Quinn Pottery. Thank you, Jessica. Can everyone see that, or is that just me in the chat?
We can see it.
Okay, great. So things to notice here. First of all, great form. Design is really quite brilliant. I love the way she kind of has her stamp on here. Hard move to pull off. If you've ever tried to stamp the foot, usually makes them rock a lot. And look at all of the different surfaces that are going on. First of all, there's this wonderful, I think it's maybe chattering or like rope cord texture going on here. I don't actually know. And it's incredible the way it manages to break through both this matte satin glaze and these transparent glazes, right? So it gives it a lot of depth right away. So often people who are working on pots that are more based off of drawing and imagery, they have a tendency to make things very soft and smooth as a palette, as a canvas to paint on. But it's quite wonderful the way it interacts with the surface here. And these are flowers with this sort of polychromatic glaze, this lilac pink glaze, and then this transparent gray celadon next to this satin one. And then over the the pink, the sort of lilac glaze is, again, I think just probably painted glaze or painted underglaze. And then, you know, this looks like a painted line, but this beautifully sort of almost machine tooled double trimming line has a kind of nod to Art Deco design. That double line really pops, okay? That's Brenda Quinn. And, you know, if you think about it, you know, I want to preface that she is just absolutely extraordinary potter. But a lot of this stuff would be, you know, similar to the glaze palette we have at BKLYN Clay, right? And this could be done, you would paint this on, and then you would put wax resist or latex, and then dip the whole thing in this glaze. I think is it Lars? I forget the gray glazes.
We've got like Norm, I think.
Norm, there you go, right?
Yeah.
And then this could be Alice, and this could be Barry, right? So you could have some interaction. Now they wouldn't necessarily fall exactly like that, but Brenda Quinn, check her out.
It'll look just like that.
Yeah, just like, you know.
Yeah.
There you go. You just whip one of them. Let's now move on to my best friend in the whole world. That's the benefit of pottery, is that, you know, you get to just say to yourself, who am I going to have coffee with today? Who are you drinking out of? What's that one?
This is a really special one that I use as like a water cup, but it's John Gill, but Gus glazed it, and he just like put painter's tape all over it and just dunked it. Yeah. Radical,
wild guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't, you got to check out, toss him on there, John Gill. He and Andrea are on Instagram. I think it's Gill Pottery.
Yeah.
But check both of them out. They're visionary people.
Yeah.
So this is my my really good friend, James Pastor. His Instagram is just James Pastor. And he also contemporaneously is doing more hand building. This is a sort of hand-built piece of his. Okay, slab built, incredible. Again, think about the piece I showed you of Sarah's, how the footprint is the genesis for the form, okay? But notice how he didn't, you know, it's not so obvious on the top. It's a little more subtle because he privileged the drinkability out of this than the sculptural quality. But this is a tea bowl that I got. James is currently the program director at Clay Arts Center, which is in Port Chester, New York. And previously, he had been the program director and also at another time, the director of the ceramics department at Goggle Works, which is a art center in Reading, Pennsylvania. And actually, today is the anniversary of the first time that I went out there. Facebook reminded me, and visited James. And, you know, he didn't make pots for a while. Neither did I after we graduated. And I would kind of go out there. And even though he got this job, you know, he was just so busy, as I'm sure you guys know, right? And just so busy with your life and your profession that he wasn't making pots. So I'd go out there to kind of just light a fire under his ass and bring pots that I was making and get him to make pots. And then I went out one time and he literally pulled this right out of the kiln. And I was like, I'm taking this. No, you're not gonna have time to photograph it. Screw you, kind of thing, with this little yellow bottom. And also check out this architecture of this drippy glaze. So why don't we walk through what's going on here? So much stuff. I'm gonna give away all of Jim's secrets, okay? So the first thing that's happening is there's a sort of underglaze that's applied over the whole thing, black underglaze, and then he wipes his fingers through it. That's called wiping. Very historic pottery technique, okay? He's applying it very differently, but it's, I mean, really one of the foundational pottery techniques, usually with dark clay and a white slip over top, okay? And so he's done that through a black underglaze. And then you can see he's wax resisted this negative space of a sort of peacock scale pattern. And then there is a glaze that's applied over the whole thing, and then a green copper wash, okay? And look at all of the different architectural solutions he's made to make it so this doesn't fall off and ruin his foot here. He's got this ridge here, and the glaze, I'm trying to hold it in the light, collects just beautifully right there. And it even skipped a beat, like my heart when I saw it.
That's so good.
It skipped a beat and pooled like so beautifully, like this sort of emerald jewel down here, right? And then if you can really see, there's like on top of that, I don't know if there's resolutions coming through, there's an extra little line in here that he trimmed with a very fine trimming tool just to catch any extra glaze. And you can see right here, that's a part where it kind of caught in that moment, okay? So different solutions. And then this wild yellow liner glaze, okay? Now, it's a wild interior, but think about this. How do you bring someone into the inside of the pot? So just a little bit on the lip here kind of brings the person into it, okay? James Pastor, great guy. Now, this is a not ceramic pot that I love. I use it all the time. This is a plastic cup by a mid-century modern designer, very famous, Russel Wright. Probably people who are into design are familiar with him. And I love this. We have an incredible Russel Wright plastic pottery collection because my wife's late father was a sort of obsessive collector of many things, including randomly plastic Russel Wright stuff. And I like to hold this up because number one, the design on this is just, wow, so good, okay? This is a sort of coffee cup. And you know what I hate? I hate these cups where there's this little finger handle on here and you can't put your finger in there, all right? That's my Larry David moment where I'm like, what is that for? You know, what is this? Sometimes people put like just a flat thing there, and I'd rather have that than something I couldn't get my finger through. But, you know, boom, like the trigger on a gun, really incredible. And this is something to think about. Number one, it's this wild pop plastic color. But one of the things to think about here is that there was a time in the beginning where plastic was not disposable and it was a new material and it was something that was considered exciting and new. And so he mainly designed ceramics that was all over, you know, very, very famous. You know, you would have got it in like Macy's and stuff like that. But he, of course, he had to design a line of plastic stuff. And we have these great plates that I eat out of all the time. They're awesome. And we have servers and stuff. They're so good, really light. And different, again, a different mindset about design and the relationship to ceramics. Not only was this not disposable, but actually it requires some care. So you have to periodically, you can't see it here, but they will cultivate scratch marks from cutlery over time. And you actually have to, as the owner of it, similar to the way you would polish silver, well, people didn't really polish silver, their servants did, but you would sand this, okay? So you would get a fine grit sandpaper, and my wife has memories as a child of sitting there with her dad, kind of sanding this stuff back, okay? And then you sand it to a finer grade, right? So Russel Wright, great design, beautiful. They stack wonderfully. I mean, this is like I'm so happy whenever we have dinner guests over and I get to use this stuff because it's just so much easier to wash in the dishwasher, and they're so much lighter to bring around. So that's Russel Wright, great designer. He also has a famous house somewhere that I've never been to, and maybe when people are no longer in quarantine, that's a nice day for you. What else? I got so many more pots to go through. I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah, I think we need to do like another one.
We could do a follow-up, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
Okay, another good friend of mine, Stepanka, I'm gonna butcher her last name, she's Czech, Horolkova, I believe, but I think it's not that. It's actually something that looks like that, but I don't have it in my head. But Stepanka is a really good friend of mine, a great ceramic artist. This is hand-built, paper thin. Maybe, can you see, let me show you this. It is so paper thin. That's the translucency of it.
Wow.
Nice.
Okay. Really incredible. And Stepanka is the studio manager at Teachers College. And the director, I don't actually have any of his pottery, is Tom Lawler, a good friend, both of them good friends of mine. And Stepanka's work, you know, check her out. She's under Stepanka Ceramics. First of all, right now, Stepanka probably is the antidote to your quarantine blues. She is a endlessly positive person, and her social media is also like that as well. Very cheery kind of person. And you know, look, here's got this message, don't go, this image of a chair, right? She often, some of her work is very minimal. This is done with inlay, and if you can tell, there's sort of difference in glaze. It's a very thin, clear glaze over this black inlay, but the chair, it has a sort of topography that matches the quilting pattern. It's done with a thick glaze here. Okay, I don't know if you can kind of, maybe the light can kind of capture that. Okay, and these little buttons, and great little handle here. You know, I don't know if she admits this, but I like to take credit for Stepanka doing more handles. When we met, she was like, you know, I hate it. It's just like all this extra work. I don't really like making handles. I was like, no, we got to do it. And man, her handles are great now. You know, she has these beautiful, really, really thin, but just but it just works so beautifully. And these are great if you like to drink coffee in bed, because you can just kind of plop it down on your beer belly or on the bed and it's not going to topple over. Improvising, I'm going to grab one more thing that's not actually Friends Pottery. I'm going to show you something pretty interesting here.
All right.
Dead air time. Okay.
Such a serious collection.
Oh, yeah. So these are two pieces of salt-fired earthenware from the 19th century. One is a shard that I excavated. Okay, I used to teach at the College of Mount St. Vincent's, which is in Riverdale, and their campus is huge. It was built in the the turn of the century. And I want to preface that you should actually look at the real history of how Central Park was stolen from people. But they had property in Central Park, and the city bought them out. Everyone else, they just sort of ethnically cleansed. But they gave this school a property in Riverdale as a compensation, and that's when they built their campus there. And this New York City, I talked about this in the beginning. New York City, one of New York City's first great industries was architectural earthenware that was salt-fired. And if you can see here, this was once a giant sewer grate. Okay, you can see the curvature of this. This would have been for a sewer grate that would have been, this wide or something like that. And I was walking on campus one day, and the sun hit this, and I said, that rock looks just like salt-fired clay. And then I walked like 20 feet, and I said, you know what, I think it was. And I pulled it out of the ground, and sure enough, it was. I love to hand this around in my pottery classes, and then people get so disgusted when I tell them that it was a sewer grate, like as if like it still got poop on it or something like that. But this was one of New York City's first major industrial exports in the 18th and 19th century, salt-fired earthenware. Now, this is something very different. This is a salt-fired earthenware ginger beer bottle made for Beatty of London, which was a ginger beer company, cheap company. And this was manufactured in Stoke-on-Trent. They were sold all over the place, but I bought this at the New York Ceramics and Glass Fair in 2015, I think for $20. Because, these people, they bring all of this stuff over here. And then if you go in the last couple of hours, really big deals. Hey, Alex is in here. You can make really good deals because they don't want to ship this stuff back. So, we have a tendency to talk about ceramics like, wow, ceramics is like how people conveyed all of their worldly beliefs and stuff. But, also it was just like garbage, right? It was just like the trash that was cluttering up the world and was made cheaply for people. To this day, if you are if you go to the Ganges River in India, you'll see a lot of trash, but you'll also see ceramic shards from the 12th century in China. And this was excavated. This is a ginger beer bottle excavated from the ground outside of a ceramic factory in Stoke-on-Trent in England. And I just love this form. This would have been made by hand. It was not molded. You can see sort of the way it was cut off of the wheel. Probably it was made with a jigger mold where someone took the profile of this and they had a cylinder and they kind of just pushed it in like that. And then probably stamped right by the same person. Or maybe it was thrown by someone and then handed off and stamped. And then salt-fired. And one of the things that you might not know if you just do pottery in ceramic studios or in schools nowadays is that kiln furniture, there's always been interesting solutions, but for a lot of ceramic history, people didn't really use kiln furniture. What do I mean by that? Kiln shelves and kiln stilts. They just stacked shit on top of each other. And so this is salt-fired, and you can see here, actually, you lose a little bit. The salt is added into the kiln at a high temperature. It atomizes, glazes everything, very hygienic. That's why it was used for bottles and sewer grates. But they would stack them like this, and then they would break it off. And sometimes they would not break so good. And you can see here, there's a little chip from the original breaking. Okay, Beatty Ceramics. I love this piece. And let's go into this guy. This is a good resource. This is my good friend Brian R. Jones, And I think he's just Brian R. Jones on Instagram. Again, there's a list down there that you can follow along with. And Brian, just a heads up, we were talking the other day, and Brian used to have a podcast that he took down called The Jones Cast, where he would interview potters, and they were really good conversations. But we were talking the other day, and he said he's putting them back up there. So, and he said he would tell me so I could send my students, but we haven't, I don't know if he's back up yet. Check it out. Go to his Instagram, ask him. But it was called The Jones Cast. And I love this pot. The porcelain, cone 6, sort of high-footed, you know me, T-bowl kind of thing. And so many different things going on. You know, if you know me at all, I love confetti and stuff like that. So these are different underglazes and glazes. So some of these are glazes that he put down first, or underglaze that he put down first, bisque fired, and then glazed around it as well. So not all of these dots are just in the bisque. So something to think about when you do drawing and painting on greenware, you know, you don't have to stop there and just put a clear glaze on it. And then he's got this black terrace sidge over this part here, sort of two bicameral design here, or not bicameral, bilateral, okay? And, you know, he's got these fun drawings that are sgraffitoed through, little pattern here, kind of American quilt making, and this thing which reminds me of Pac-Man, and a flower here. And then here, this is the glaze. This is the same glaze as this, but over this black terrace sidge becomes this wild Val Cushing type of glaze that I love. I mean, it looks like kind of outer space. I don't know if you can see that. Right, and then also think about this, something to think about. You don't have to glaze every part of it, right? So here, unglazed and glazed, wonderful tactile difference, okay? That's Brian R. Jones. Check him out. Also, another cup that is slightly squared. You wouldn't really notice it from looking at it, but it's got a slight squareness to it. Kind of wonderful. And then I really love this kind of deep foot with this manganese purple glaze here. So something to think about as well, right? Again, the underside of things. Oh, let's talk about Curt Anderson. You know, I didn't put him on there. I don't think I put him in the list. I just grabbed this right before. I love this bowl. I don't know Curt very well. We met once, but he seems like a pretty fun guy. I love this sort of narrative cartoon drawing of this ant monster wrapping around this pot and then these sort of different colored pieces. Okay, so this is like it's like a dog bowl size thing. Great bowl. And the reason why I'm pulling this up is it's going to be a great segue into the next pot that I talk about, which is going to be by Ron Meyers. But think about how pots are sort of kind of like a movie. Okay, John Gill, who's made the cup that Anders is drinking out of, he often talked about, you know, being a reporter when you're making stuff. And I like to think about, you know, what if you're a director? So to me, this is like a very cinematic thing, okay? And, you know, you get a preview of what's coming up. You follow it, right? So imagine you sort of see this, what's happening. And then he's got this sort of colorful explosion and this kind of crazy ant character. So probably black slip or a terrace sidge that he's graffitoed through. And then here, this is graffito. This is all on a sort of darker clay with a white slip over it. Okay, and then this fun red thing on the bottom. But graffitoing through this, that's a kind of an obvious move. But here he's just graffitoed through to the dark clay and then filled these cells in with colored glazes. So it's kind of like another Pac-Man vibe, I think, right? And this is a great segue into one of the great American studio potters, Ron Meyers. I just love Ron Meyers' work. Okay, Ron Meyers, there's some great videos of him making stuff on the internet. Check him out. I'm just going to give you a sort of visual 360. This is a sort of rooster. And then look at this fence. It's like totally just a movie going around here. And then leads you back into his character. He calls these, I think, his like misfit characters or something like that. And then check out this wild foot. It's like 2 inches deep, and it's got this like jagged, really rough, sharp edge. And then again, it's got this fun couple of spots for your hand to revisit, okay? And you know, what's interesting is this finger mark is here for you to put your finger so that you're looking at the main attraction. okay? So think about how you can force the user to experience things with you, okay? And that's Ron. All of this is done with China paints, okay? And then I could go on and on. I have more pots here, but I thought I would just show you guys this. I was once a normal person. And when I went to Japan in the year 2000. I was 12. And my mom's college roommate was from Tokyo and lived in Hiroshima. And I actually went and visited them by myself. I got on an airplane and I flew to Japan and I stayed with them for like a whole month, and it was awesome. And hilariously, I had no appreciation for pottery at that time. And it didn't happen for years and years after that. But I did buy this, okay, it's sort of Dragon Ball GT, my man Goku, my life's hero, okay? And you know what? This is a great cup. The glaze is held up so well. I mean, you know, these underglazes, I haven't had a dishwasher in 15 years, but we used to have a dishwasher for a decade, and this never, you know, the underglaze never chipped off or anything. Really wonderful. And I'm going to show one more thing you guys should know about. No, two more things, and then we'll go. I forgot to pull this one out. This is Will Ruggles, or Ruggles and Rankin. I don't know which one is which. It's like Daniel Rankin and Will Ruggles. I don't remember, but they were a couple who made pottery down in North Carolina, and they were apprenticed under a great ceramist named, oh my God. I'm saying so much stuff. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. I'll come back to that. But he's everyone's favorite potter. Wow, brain fart moment. Anyway, I love this pot, wood fired, kind of dry here. This sort of chino glaze on here. And then look how it just turns into this lustrous quality. Wow, beautiful. And these dots, they just took their finger and dipped it. Michael Simon, that was their teacher, okay? So you should look at Michael Simon's work as well, and Ruggles and Rankin. Ruggles and Rankin, they got some images on the internet, but they retired before the internet days. So not as much of them on there. But Ruggles and Rankin are great. And I love the way this slip is dry and kind of goes with the matte glaze tactile stuff. And just, man, it fits so good into your hand. Wonderful cup. And then I'll end with this. This is Bandana Pottery. This is like my favorite bowl. I use this all the time. Sort of inspiration for a lot of bowls that I make actually just formally. And this is Bandana Pottery. And Bandana is a husband and wife team based out of North Carolina, Naomi Hunt and Michael Daglish. And again, I might have reversed their last names. I don't know. Just check it out, Bandana Pottery on Instagram. And they're wonderful because their work, it has a contemporary vibe to it, but it's really a nod to history. And also their practice is wonderful in that they're a husband and wife team, but you know, they both do everything. So one person throws, the other person decorates one day, and then they switch it up. And they also have a very sort of humanistic apprenticeship where they have apprentices making pots, and they don't say, you know, you make this mug. They say, okay, look at these books of historical ceramics and make stuff. Anyway, I think that's a great place to leave it. Similar, very deep foot to that Ron Meyers cup. Okay?
Well, wow. That was amazing. I knew we were in for something good. I knew you'd have a pretty expansive collection, but I
need to throw one more shout out actually really quick, because I'd be remiss, you know, even if we do a follow up to this, I want to get this out here, is my man, Doug Peltzman. Follow him on Instagram, Doug Peltzman on Instagram. This is black porcelain, inlaid foot, really beautiful, polychromatic glaze, sgraffito, wild stuff. This is a bowl of his also that I meant to talk about, kind of same thing. You can see, I mean, look the way this glaze kind of stops here, really dynamic potter. And Doug is a cool guy that I'm good friends with, but he doesn't really make work like this anymore. I got to get some of his new stuff. He makes like stoneware pots that are reduction fired. So check him out, Doug Peltzman on Instagram. I just had to do that one last shout out. So anyway, thank you. I'll give it back to you, Anders.
Thank you, Haakon. So clearly we need to do another session like this, because I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of what's I can just see immediately behind you. But that was great. And thank you everyone for joining. That was a good turnout. we will, Haakon and I will communicate, and we'll plan another thing, and we'll let you all know when that's taking place.
Thank you so much, Haakon. That was awesome.
Thank you guys, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. You know, I won't get serious or anything, but I think it's great that we're doing these online streams. People are feeling so isolated right now, so it's a great kind of chance to be with your classmates and maybe also learn something and just kind of hear each other's voices and stuff like that. So, you know, you don't need us to do these Zooms, everybody out there, okay? So stay in touch with your people and follow up with them, and you know, hang in there, and we'll have a lot to talk about when we get back. Okay.
Thank you so much, Haakon.
Thank you, everybody.
And everybody, take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.